time now, and here we are, doing it for the first time here tonight on June the 6th. Well, hello everybody, and happy Monday. My name's Jonathan Turner. Waiting for Steve to hop on. He's having some technical difficulties. That's why we were running a little bit late here this evening. But we have a good show lined up here for you today. MSN Weekly, a live show that we do here every single Monday night, except for last Monday, and July the 4th, for that matter. But we have a lot to cover here. We're going to hopefully welcome in Steve. Steve, man, what's up?
Hey, John.
Well, I mean, hey,
I
technology
thought
and,
I sorted this with Comcast. I really did. I thought maybe I had everything adjusted, but I guess not. So,
well, I mean, hey, stuff happens, and it is what it is. The thing I was going to say, we were just getting into this thing. Technology isn't always the the best thing, but we make do with what we can. And it's going to be a good show. So what are we going to cover today? This past Friday, MSN News, which is our news division here of the Michigan Soccer Network, we launched our first ever article. We talked about the Midwest Premier League versus the UPSL. We're going to talk about that. So get your comments in. By the way, I have Comcast too, Steve. So you're not the only one that has Comcast.
well,
Um,
sorry, Danny. I see that. I get it, but sometimes we don't have too many options. Sometimes our providers are what the apartment complex allows, so we don't have too many options. So, as
well,
of right now.
Well, yeah. So as you can see, the comments up there on the right. So any new comments that will pop in tonight will pop in hopefully there. But yeah. So what I was going to say is, we had this article on Friday that launched. Today was an exciting day for us here at the network. We were able to send out emails. I think I sent out emails. I think to about 200 coaches across the state of Michigan, in preparation for our high school preview ranking show that we're going to be doing here later this month on the network. We'll talk some more about that tonight as well. But it's exciting times here at the Michigan Soccer Network. We covered. Well, I know, Steve, you were not eating poutine this weekend, but
Not this weekend.
but what I would say is that you were not there this past weekend up with me in Grand Rapids. We had a chance to close out the Midwest Premier League season, and Tulip City coming away with a 4-1 win over BIH Grand Rapids. With that win, they leapfrogged over the Michigan Jaguars into third place. I looked at the standings today on the Midwest Premier League's site, and both teams were tied with a goal differential as well as overall points. I think it goes to head, and I'm not quite sure. I didn't look back at the schedule to see who won in that game, Tulip City or Lansing Common. So, but either way, it was a good way to end the season. And onward and upward, as they would say. Third sure ain't second, as Ken Seelman says, who's from Lansing Common, and that is definitely true. I didn't see them getting. They would have had to have gotten another goal, Steve. They would have had to have won 5-1 in order to get to second place outright. So, but are you still there, or did you freeze on me?
But not me.
No, you're not frozen. Hey, all right then.
Okay,
Hey.
good. It was just you for a second. Well, the one thing I will say is that I think the table finished out. The one thing that I can say was the level of play and the consistent level of play throughout the league, throughout the Midwest Premier League and the UPSL. And I think that kind of led to our conversation based on that article, where you kind of broke down the different ways to rank and evaluate the different leagues. And I think so much the conversation was always I think pushed by some of the fans and members of the league as far as being able to.
Up, Steve froze. I'm going to finish his thought for him, I think, which was that Steve, that the leagues, even though they are um, even though they are different and offer different things. They're very competitive, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write this article. I wrote the article with the idea that we know and understand that there are multiple leagues across Michigan for anyone to get soccer. You've got Michigan United Soccer League, right? MUSL. You've got the Michigan Premier Soccer League, right? A number of leagues now. Those leagues tend to be more towards your recreational, right, where the teams themselves maybe not take it they take it seriously, but just it's not the same competitive level, right? The real competitive levels here in or competitive levels here in Michigan, when you think of Premier and think of the think when you think of the competitive level in this, you think of UPSL, Midwest Premier League, right there at the top, right, and you don't think of the other leagues, right? I think that if you were to now the NPSL is one that we have not yet covered, Steve, right?
Correct.
So the NPSL is not a league that we've covered. We'd love to cover it. Is there something to be said about that league, right? And I didn't put USL 2 there because I feel like USL 2, you start getting into NISA, those leagues are a notch above the UPSL and the NPSL and the West Premier League. Keeping in mind that the Midwest Premier League is a brand new league. It's only been around for 2 years, right? They got their first season last year. This is their second season. The US UPSL started in 2011, so it's got 10, 11, 12, 11 years under its belt as a league. It's a national league, right? It's not regionalized. So there's a lot of things you can say about the Midwest Premier League that the UPSL has that they don't, right? Um, and I think vice versa. I think that Midwest Premier League is right now is more grassroots, right? It's more about like word of mouth and working within the membership and the clubs in order to create a really good product, and a good fan base and a good following. And that's where right now the Midwest Premier League, I think here in Michigan and around Michigan is really doing a good job. And that's why I wanted to talk about that today on this show is Steve once again having his internet issues. But nope, technically when it's tied, it goes to alphabetical. That is true from Ken Seelman. He's from Lansing Common. We've obviously covered Lansing Common and talked about them and what that's a main reason why when we talk about the rankings, the Midwest Premier League came out a little bit better, right? The ranking wise. And if you haven't checked out the article, I'd head over to MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Click on MSN News. The article is right there. But the rankings, and when I did the rankings, I did it in 5 categories. The 5 categories were teams, players, coaches, fan bases, and then there's the overall ranking, right? So for the UPSL, which again got its start back in 2011, they have 400 clubs nationwide. So they're they're much larger than the Midwest Premier League. There's no question about that, right? They have 255 clubs competing for 32 places in the national playoff. That national playoff is actually this weekend. Semifinals are on Friday in Columbus. The national finals are on Sunday, along with the third place game. The Midwest East Division is a division that we cover here in Michigan, made up of 10 teams. Those teams compete. When I look at the UPSL again, we covered this, right? We covered this throughout the season. We covered 17 games of the UPSL this year. We went to Allianz FC. We went to Cedars FC. We went to Hamtramck. We went to AIM. We were in Detroit numerous times. National Soccer, we covered almost all of their games. Shabib Al Yemen, right? We did not we covered them while we were at another game, but we never were at their facility to cover them at their place. FK Olympic, we saw them a couple of times on the road, but never went to their place. Allianz FC and City United, right? So we know the league by far. The best fan base right now in the UPSL is Alianza FC, right? So Alianza FC is the best right now in the UPSL from the summer. Okay. Now, Cedars FC's got a good following. Detroit United has a good following. They do, but they don't show up in numbers, and they don't necessarily show up in regards to following other teams the way that other teams in the Midwest Premier League would do. So, so that's why when we talk about the fan bases and things like that, it's really, really what put the Midwest Premier League over the top. Let me see if Steve, man, how you doing there, man?
Uh, Frustrated, to say the least. Um,
I could imagine.
I'll be sitting here all day working on my computer just fine, and the internet doesn't seem to go out. But of course,
Yeah.
we want to have a podcast, and for some reason, I don't
Well,
know.
hey, hey, that's why we got to be flexible and we got to work through this. But here's the thing that I was just talking about, right? And the UPSL, because we're talking about them right now. Yeah, they've been around for a long time. They've been around for 11 years, right? You know, and I think that right here locally in Metro Detroit, we think about that. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of options to watch soccer, right? You don't have to go very far. There's USL2, there's NISA, there's UPSL, there's women's side, UWS 1 and 2. There's a lot of options to watch soccer, right? You start going out to the west side of the state, there's not I mean there's options, but it's not like there's got to be 50, 60, 70 teams out here you could watch on any given day. There's 10. You got Grand Haven, Muskegon, you got Tulip City, you've got West Michigan Bearings, Kalamazoo, you've got BIH Grand Rapids, right? That's just a few. There's probably, I know there's a few more popping up, right? We talked today about a new team possibly coming in here, United West FC, which is going to be joining the UPSL here in the fall. They're on the west side, but there's not a lot of options, right? You get in the middle of the state. You got Lansing, you got Ann Arbor FC, right? You got Lansing Common, Lansing United, right? Again, it's not as many options to watch good soccer in the middle of the state or on the west side of the state. There's a lot of options here locally.
Yeah, and you touched on it as far as the variance of different leagues, and the UPSL has just existed for a longer period of time. It's been around. It's a national league, so there's some people that like some of the things about it, and then the reason that the Midwest Premier League and other leagues have spawned off is because they wanted to do things differently, and not just differently from the UPSL, but different from other leagues within the U.S. soccer system.
I thought there was the Lansing United. I thought there or Lansing. I'm sorry, it's Lansing City. I apologize. Lansing
Yeah,
City. My apologies.
correct.
Um, Sorry. But you're right. The philosophy is different. The philosophy of the Midwest Premier League is completely different, right? And the members themselves, and it's on the website for the Midwest Premier League. It's the members run the show. Now, I would imagine that there is still some form of a board, right, that works, on behalf of the members. Um, just like because in order for things to operate, you got to have a democratic kind of way. Otherwise, things can get out of control. But and that's where I think the politics come into play too, right? When you start talking about large boards and things like that, that's where I think a lot of the people have a problem with big leagues is because there's a board up here, right? And then ultimately those decisions they don't always look and feel like they're the best like the best interest of the
Yeah,
clubs. And that's where I think the UPSL and Ken Stevens says they do have a board. Um, you know, uh, but that's
well,
where the problem lies.
I think the problem is in lies that when the board doesn't see the teams or the leagues within the same light that the people day in day out in the leagues are what they see as the best solutions for some of the issues and problems that arise, whether it's scheduling issues or certain requirements, payment requirements, and fee requirements, and entrant requirements. And there's things that sometimes a national board will look at and say, hey, this is how we want it to be run across all of our states and all the leagues. And then there's things where like the Midwest Premier League can say, hey, like what more do our members want? What do these specific teams want? And they can analyze it on a far different scale because you're appeasing 12 teams and you're not trying to appease 136 teams spread out across 48 contiguous states. And you know what I mean? So there's a little bit of different in how those different boards have power and what those boards mean, a little bit more impactful on the smaller side, because those teams have a little bit more of a say. And that's where, the UPSL, those teams don't have a whole lot of wiggle room with what they can and can't do on certain things. They have to follow a protocol within the UPSL system, which has been set up to run very well and efficiently across the states. But, there are always going to be teams and groups that find, they want to do things differently. And so I think, that's the biggest thing about why these other leagues have formed and why they exist and why they've sprouted up. And I think we've talked about it all season. I think the most important thing is just creating opportunities for these players to play, creating more opportunities for players in and out of college in that age range to keep playing at a high level. And it's not always a destination point, but it's always most certainly a starting point and a jumping point for a lot of these players. Whether it's just to continue their play through college and to keep in fit and going back into their season, or whether it's a jumping point to hopefully get noticed by a team in a NISA league, a USL2 type team, and to start your career somewhere. You look at some of the better success stories across the football landscape across the world. I mean, Jamie Vardy was a beer league player who got signed by Leicester City for £1 million. Obviously, a 1 in a million type story, but you have to start somewhere. And so, having these opportunities in these leagues is great opportunity for these players to find homes and to play at high competitive levels, which didn't exist even 5-10 years ago. I mean, you can
No,
speak on it, how we ref.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy because, like I said, I mean, 10 years ago, the soccer landscape was completely different here in Michigan, and even 2 years ago. I mean, so the reality is the leagues, and I think that at some point in time, there's going to be a situation where all these leagues are going to have to merge, or things are going to, because there's so much soccer available that when you have too many options, leagues will suffer from that, and ultimately mergers or leagues will have to kind of go and redevelop and rechange, whatever, however you want to call it. But that will have to happen at some point in time. But so here's my rankings, and you didn't write the article, I did. so 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 let's
That guy.
put that out there. Steve's like, I didn't write this article. I didn't even tell him I was doing it.
That's true. I did not know it till it
But
was already
by the way,
published.
so we want to start something new here. What are we drinking on the network, right? So tonight, I didn't have my Detroit distillery on hand. I got to buy some, but tonight I'm drinking Kraken and Coke. So I got a lot of Kraken, a little bit of Coke, in my Detroit Lions cup that my kids got me for my birthday a number of years ago. What are you drinking, Steve?
Well, far less entertaining as you, because I simply have a blue raspberry Powerade from Costco,
Oh,
um, which, to be honest, I find to be better than Powerade or Gatorade, the Costco brand. So,
okay.
yeah, that's my go-to. So, staying hydrated. It is officially the start of college soccer season at the end of this week. So, my intake is becoming a little bit more healthy conscious and a little bit more
Sure.
wise as I have to
That's hey, gotta keep it.
alert,
I get
but
it,
I
man.
will don't worry, I will definitely find some good beverages for next Monday, as now that we're going to start sharing our drinks. I'll make sure I pick up a six pack
Yeah,
of
for
something
sure.
good or something. But tonight I had to adjust on last second, and blue Costco Powerade Gatorade is what it is.
All right, so let's get into the UPSL rankings here. This is what
All
I
right.
did. So I gave there are 5 categories: teams, players, coaches, stadiums, and fan bases. Now, for the pure and simple fact of stadiums, to be honest with you, stadiums is like, okay, well, which they're playing at high school stadium. Most of these teams play their games at high school stadiums. Um, we've been to a lot of high school stadiums here recently. Um, But so I think that this one category is the one that maybe, give or take, might not be as equal, right? So,
Well, I think
um,
I think some teams have access to facilities that others don't, and some of the teams are more concerned about just, hey, we need a school to play at, a turf to
yep.
field at, and they're not worried about that environment. So, there's only a few scenarios and situations that can kind of step out from the rest. But I think for the most part, most of the stadiums are pretty all on par with, as far as the facilities.
To answer Ken Stevens' question, yes, moving forward, not next week because we'll be at high schools on Monday. We'll talk about that in a second, but yes, when we're in studio and here, the goal will be for us to talk about what we're drinking. And the idea would be, to be honest with you, would be drinking local local stuff, right? So anything
Absolutely.
local. So, hey, maybe lemonade coffee with alcohol, right? So, um, you know, but
Lemonade,
just
coffee, and Baileys.
and Bailey's, yeah. I just don't think that doesn't seem right, but maybe some vodka in there
Doesn't
or some rum or something. I don't know, but we'll get into. But yes, the answer is yes. So,
sure they
so
figure
when
it
it
out.
comes to the rankings for the UPSL, here is what I did. I said from the team standpoint, I gave them a 4. All right. So again, the teams for the most part, and this was the same for both the Midwest Premier League and the UPSL. If you were to tell me, if I were to be blindfolded, and I just could, I could hear the competition from your voice, Steve, and I wouldn't know. To me, there's not much of a difference. I think that again, Inter Detroit and Cedars FC, they both played in the Midwest Premier League this year. We saw players from both sides. All right, they both players played in the Inter Detroit's UPSL team, and then they were on the Midwest Premier League team. Now the Midwest Premier League team was like their number one. That's where they put all their ammunition. That's where they were like, hey, this is our number one team. The UPSL side was the lower division for them tonight, or to this, for them this season. But again, I don't, for calling all these games, I don't know if there was a tremendous difference in the level of play between each league.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like if you were to blind throw out leagues and not, a game and turn on a game from either league, almost top to bottom. I mean, yeah, there were teams that struggled at times, but there were teams all throughout all the leagues that struggled at moments throughout the season, outside of
Yep.
maybe a team or two here. So there was a lot of good competition, day in, day out, night in, night out for both leagues, and you wouldn't have known it. And it speaks to the volumes of the both leagues, which I think was good. Um, in that, and we also talk about that teams had teams in both leagues, and some of them were very similar squads. Some had a first team, second team type thing, but very similar talent, and very similar compete level on a nightly basis. And I don't think. We didn't see much of a drop off, from going
No.
one league to the other.
I
I
mean,
mean, we saw
if
some
you were to
excellent play, but you never saw that drop off.
like if Detroit United played in the Midwest Premier League, I think that they would still be near the top of the table.
100%.
I think that there would be
And
that.
same
I
as Michigan Stars, if they were
Yeah,
playing in the UPSL, I think they would be
correct.
up there, or BIH or Lansing
Yeah.
Common. Same and vice versa, because if you take, if, especially, you know, I'm not as involved with the youth game anymore to see some of these kids like coming up through the club game as I was, years ago, where you could recognize the players and know guys that were playing. But I see a lot of these same faces or names on the college rosters that I see, in the fall. And you look at both leagues, all these rosters, and when they give us their notes, I mean, you got guys playing at D1, D2, D3, NAIA, all these schools on
Yep.
all these teams. So there's high level talent, and on the women's side as well, whether that's UWS one, UWS two, and vice versa. And the same thing is that there's just opportunities for these players to play, and I think again. Like Danny Garrett has said, we're not flooding the market yet. There's still gonna be more teams. Sure. But again, creating more opportunities for these guys, and I think that's been the biggest thing is the compete level is good in both leagues.
So looking at the players again, the scoring was the same for both leagues. Um, the players, again, Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA. They again, a majority of them. I'm not saying all the players were, but for example, Hamad, who played for Cedars FC, is now a member of the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, right? So he became a player. He signed with them here this summer. He's going to be playing for them here this fall. Now I think he was at. I'm not sure where he was at before that, but um, I'd have to look back at my notes. But he's now playing Division One soccer in
And yeah, and,
Oakland, which
maybe Coach Eric Pogue and his staff had an eye on him through some other people, and maybe not, and maybe it was his success that maybe caught an eye, and those types of things. And again, just creating that platform, for players like that to have an opportunity is great, and to see guys go on. I'm sure he's going to have good success because he works hard. I mean, it's a guy that you and I, started to question the coaching staff when they took him off the pitch for how much we thought he could be an impact type player. So Those are the types of opportunities we talk about. And yeah, some people will say, well, it's still amateur soccer. Yeah, well, for some of these guys, they're still at that level where that's where they have to be playing and need to be playing, and getting those meaningful minutes to hopefully attract attention from a D1 type program, like in this case Oakland University.
Yeah, and I put the coaches in the same thing. Some of these coaches are college coaches, like and we saw that with Matt Brown, right, college coach, in the Midwest Premier League. Rick Larson was national; she's a Schoolcraft. So these teams, a number of them were college coaches. A lot of them were more maybe like with Dan Diak from from Jaguars, is part of the Jaguars club soccer. Doug Steinert, he's a member of Lawrence Tech, as well as I think he's still at Rochester High School out for the girls' season. So, you know, um, again, they just varying backgrounds. The coaching, is pretty much, I would say, pretty on par, pretty close to the same across the board. And then it got in this. Then this is where things kind of started to take a change. So the reason why I gave stadiums a 3 in the UPSL, and the reason why I did this, is purely for the fact that there was a lot of bouncing around that we had to do in the UPSL this year
There
with
was no
teams.
consistency for some teams to have a home facility.
Correct.
Not
Yep.
that their facility at one school to the other school wasn't equally as good, but sometimes there was constant movement or change of venues for some of the teams, which kind of made it's hard to be consistent when team X plays at facility A or team Y plays at facility B.
Yeah. Yeah, and but then again, in the UPSL, and we'll talk about Lansing Common on the other side of this in a second, but Allianz FC played at Corktown, right, the old ballpark, and they were drawing 500, 800 people every single game, right?
Yeah.
So, um, but when I think of fan bases, though, I don't know if Allianz FC has a quote unquote fan base, or if they just have a community of people who are coming to watch soccer right now at that stadium, right? So I think they're building that as we talk about fan bases, because I gave the UPSL a 2 in fan bases because we go to these games, Steve. We sit there and we watch these games. We're calling them, and then we're seeing the stands and how many fans are there. And when I hear that 800 people showed up for the Lansing Common Inter Detroit game, we can only think of one other time this season we saw 500 plus people, and that was at Allianz FC. I mean,
Yeah,
there
and
was
I
not
think
another game even close to that.
each game, obviously, right, you're going to get parents and friends and family that a lot of times come out to this, but then beyond that, and really, growing those fan bases. Uh, yeah, some fans out at a Detroit United game, and you get Hamtramck or Detroit City United out there. And sometimes we got you get some bigger crowds, and of course obviously in the playoff time, but on a consistent basis, from the two separate leagues, we just saw a higher increase in um, average fan participation from a few squads that tend to be more in the Midwest Premier League, and it doesn't take away from the league and all. These are just observations that obviously we were just making
Well,
notes on, and
yeah,
it's not.
and
And most of it's not something that the teams have a whole lot of control over, like a team like Inter Detroit, who brings a very good crowd to for their fans, right? But they're not a huge club yet, but they're winning, and their focus is on the field, making sure they win. Obviously, they're always doing stuff to make their game day experience great. They bring a DJ, so like they're always constantly working, which is awesome. I think that's great. And then there's other teams that just throw the team out in the field, and they just want to play. And so, it's nothing to take away from Inter Detroit, who maybe he's trying to do something, or Alianza, who, like you said, has this massive fan base right now of people attending the games more than anything, for sure.
yeah.
And it's just it's just observation of what's going on, and not that either is a negative, right? And it doesn't it's a negative on the league or the teams. It's just observations more based on what we're seeing, and that's just because I think there is a bigger collection of fan base right now with the team from Lansing, or whether it may be a Livonia City or an Alianza or Inter Detroit, who obviously had good success in the Midwest Premier League as well. So there's just those types of variances that you're gonna find from team to team and club to club.
Yeah, and it's something that I've talked about, that when it comes to fan bases, finding a home is really important, right? Because right now, you know, uh, that's a hard thing. Like Inter Detroit last year played their home games, and I don't remember they played their home games. I want to say they were here more central. I think they were actually out in Dearborn, if I'm not mistaken. Again, if I'm mistaken, please tell me. But I don't know the exact home field. But this year they're out in Gabriel Richard in Riverview, right? So that's not so their fan base is local to Detroit, and they got to now drive 20 minutes, to the south.
Sure.
That's going to impact the amount of people they have coming to their games, right? So for example, the Nationals, they had their home games at Orchard Lake St. Mary's this year, Oakland University, and Utica Swinehart Field. They are three different places. Now, Orchard Lake St. Mary's is way out west of where they were located, so to draw a fan base there was going to be more difficult than having it at Oakland or at Swinehart, where they train at Oakland, and they have people out in Macomb County, so that made sense, right? So drawing fans, but it's hard when you're bouncing around from place to place to place. So
Well, yeah, just
it,
even as just to have the consistency for your fans or to put
correct.
out messages to say, "Hey, where are they playing?" "Oh, well, this week they're playing here, here, here." It's and not having that consistency can hurt sometimes.
It can, and that's not necessarily the team's fault, right? Because again, when
Oh,
you think about here in Metro Detroit, the need for field usage and for to rent fields and to get them, there's a lot of teams who are fighting for those spots, and because of that, that might create an opportunity where you don't have a field for one night, and you got to make changes. So but so that's why they got a 2. On the Midwest Premier side, they got a 4. We every field we went to for the Midwest Premier League this season was the same. Right, I had no changes. Inter Detroit was in at Gabriel Richard, right? If we go out to, if we went to Michigan Stars, it was at the Stars complex in the middle of nowhere out in Washington Township, right? Um, BIH Grand Rapids was at that Crestwood Middle School. Every single game was there. We didn't have to bounce around, right?
yeah.
And so, and the stadiums, with the stadiums we went to, there were no issues, for the most part. Everything from that standpoint, consistent. It was clean. And I'd like to think that with the UPSL here, maybe moving forward, that they might be able to bump up a little bit more as they find some consistency with their scheduling of their locations of their home games.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's one of those things that, we run into with amateur soccer and like you were mentioning the amount of teams and fields and locations and sometimes to secure these things aren't the easiest. And it's not to be meant as a negative or a knock on things. And as Edwin pointed out, there are plenty of people behind the scenes
oh,
and
oh
behind the
hell yeah.
staff who are doing so much and trust me, we understand that as what they're trying to do and those types of things, and it's much appreciated obviously from our end and everything that those who do. But it just makes it harder from just even to try to get your own fans and family out to games, not specifically maybe in their case or other teams like you were mentioning the Nationals specifically who bounced across 3 different fields where it made it difficult to say, hey, the Nationals are playing tonight, where are they playing?
Yeah.
And it's right now it's here and now it's there, and so those types of things are difficult as far as just creating consistency. When you say DCFC, everyone knows they're at Keyworth. And that's just become the staple. When you talk about the Flint City Bucks, they're at Atwood. And so having that consistency of a location, regardless of the environment or amount of fans, can make a huge difference as far as just creating that connection and understanding of who plays where and have that home field sometimes. And it doesn't, it's not the end all be all, but it can be a nice thing. And I think the more some of those teams create that home field, that's how you can really start to build that atmosphere and environment at those home fields.
And I completely agree. I completely agree with you. As the fan base was where the big difference was. We gave the fan base for the UPSL. I gave them a 2, and in the Midwest Premier League, I gave them a 4. Right, and the reason, and a big reason for that was because of what we see in broadcast. Right, so there's one thing to show up to a game and to cheer on your team, and to be honest with you, that to me is the easiest way to be a fan. That's the easiest way, right? You could be there, you show up on game day, you're excited, blah blah blah, but you don't get involved in any other aspect of what they're doing, right? So some people might call that a Walmart fan. They call them, right, when it comes to Michigan State fans. They always say the Walmart fan, right? They call it. So, uh, but then you have the fans who are willing to get in their car and drive from East Lansing to the middle of nowhere, Podunk, Michigan, in Washington Township. right? And not just drive there, but show up an hour and a half before, tailgate, provide us with refreshments that we've never tried before, that weren't terrible, by the way, right? And then and then provide the team with food afterwards, right? So, that to me is the definition of a fan. And we can't think of any team in the UPSL that has that kind of fan base. If I'm wrong, tell me. I don't have a problem being wrong.
No,
So
and and I think the Alianza fan base is a rabid fan base. Is just there, loves the soccer, may not know as much about the team and what's going on, but from like their perspective, from the UPS, they were just there just for the environment and they want to be there. And then you jump back to Midwest Premier League, where you had Livonia City, who maybe a smaller amount, but you
yep,
have some really rabid guys that are there at every game. They know everything that's
correct.
going on, and smaller in numbers. So you have these fan bases of budding fan bases of fans that are passionate and that really care. And to be honest, that's all that matters. It's the best part about it is that they exist, and the fact
Yeah.
that we can banter back and forth and have these conversations is what breeds good conversation, and is the reason that we're able to sit here and spend 30-40 minutes just chatting about it here postseason. So
I know. So again, I think this is important. Whether you are in for the UPSL or the Midwest Premier League, both of those are really good options as a player, coach, fan, etc. I think that again, it comes down to what you want as a player, what you're looking to accomplish, and ultimately you make decisions that are best for you, right, and your growth. Who am I to say otherwise? Um, but here's what I want to do now. We've been talking about this, Steve, for a while. We've been talking about the importance of refereeing. We've been talking about the importance of connecting with referees. You're a referee. I'm a former referee. I haven't blown a whistle for a soccer game in some time now. 6 years, I think, is what it's been. 7 years, maybe. But
we miss you.
um, it, uh, it is a fun experience, and we're going to bring on someone right now here who is really at the top of the game in Michigan. Really, really working hard. I've been following Nick Balser now for a long time in regards to his kind of pathway. We've seen him on the cover of Official Sports or in the thing with the gear. Official Sports is like one of the big refereeing outfits, right? So everyone's got one. But just following him, actually, there was a behind the scenes thing I saw once upon a time back on YouTube that Official Sports did of him at a tournament, which is pretty cool. And is he a national five? What is, do you know what his?
I'd much rather let him
Okay, well, that's fair
break
enough.
down
Well,
everything and
let's bring
give
in
him
Nick.
his
I don't
fair
I don't
share.
want to speak for. I don't know. Let's bring in Nick Balser. Nick, man, hey, welcome here. First time on MS1 Weekly.
Jonathan, Steve, good to be with you guys. Appreciate what you're doing too for the game. It's been awesome to hear your podcast and everything, and talking about Michigan soccer and all things. So definitely, it's awesome to continue to grow the game.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you. So for those of the, since you're first time being on here, and hopefully we'll have you on more, I was trying to take a guess at what your ranking is. Not that makes a huge difference to the audience, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your refereeing background, and we'll start there.
Yeah, so I am a national assistant referee. So back when you were still officiating, we actually had 9 different grades of officials. They've now reduced that to 4. So it's grassroots, regionals, national, professional referee in the United States. And then when you make it to national and professional, then you pick a designation as either a referee or an assistant. So that's where I'm at for USSF officiating. And then I'm also a part of what's called Pro 2. So Pro is the professional referee organization that services the MLS. And then they've got a Pro 2 division that oversees the USL Championship, USL 1, MLS Next Pro, and NWSL games. And so that's all officials that are in a pool that eventually hope to make it to the MLS and work full time in that league. And then there's other officials that are, striving to do the top women's games in the country and also become a FIFA on that side of things. So it's a large pool of officials, and there's a lot of games to cover, as you guys know. So I'm an assistant referee in that group as well.
So,
Nick,
which is really cool.
obviously, you cover quite a bit of different types of games, so you get to see the game at all different levels. And I know that you worked throughout the state of Michigan at all different levels, so you've worked through these amateur type leagues and things like before. Talk about how you first got involved with refereeing, and how you started as a younger lad.
Yeah, so I was actually doing my recertification this year, and the number 19 popped up on my recertification. I've been doing this for 19 years. So back when I know it's a little, Jonathan's shaking his head. It's crazy. Uh, but back in 2000 and like 01, 02, stuff like that, my younger sister was playing ASO. And so those are all volunteer officials. And so I jumped on and decided to help out with some of their Saturday morning games. And then my other younger sister, we would travel for club games. And when we would go to the different tournaments and stuff, they would only assign a center referee, but then ask for a club linesman back then to volunteer. And so I was playing the game. I knew the game well. And so somebody asked me, eventually was like, you realize that you can get certified and get paid for this? Because at that point, it was just, you help out and you go home and that was it. And so then my mom kind of looked into it because I was 11, 12 years old at the time. And she signed me up for a referee course. And that was back when you had to go Friday night for like a couple hours, all day Saturday, and then Sunday morning, then you took the test. So it was like 15 hours. Yeah, it's like 15
Well,
hours over 3 days.
mine was 8 weeks. So that was back when I had to do eight Tuesdays at Troy Athens High School back in 1994. So it's
It's gotten a little shorter since then, hasn't it?
yeah, a little bit. So
Well, what's funny is when I remember when I got certified, Keith Miller was he's an old USSF referee originally from England who's over on the west side of the state of Michigan, and he said if you can put up with me for 3 days, you're going to be able to put up with whatever you deal with on the field. And so we all kind of joked about that because I mean it was 15 hours of him teaching us. So anyway, it was just So got into that and then kind of just did it as a hobby where my mom would drop me off on Saturdays in the park, do 2-3 games, come home with a little bit of cash in my pocket and called it good. And then I got into high school and was playing high school ball and then got invited to state cup. And then like, it's a cascade effect. You get invited to state cup and it's like, oh, it's really fun. And, you start to do men's games over on the east side of the state. Cause growing up for me, I had nothing on the west side. I mean, there was no competitive men's league. We didn't have NPSL, USL, anything like that over by us. The old teams of the West Michigan Edge and the Kalamazoo back of the USL days, those guys had already kind of pulled out of the league. So we didn't have anything. So I would spend my summers on the weekends driving back and forth from Novi and Canton and Plymouth and Detroit and Dearborn and you name it. And it was doing 2-3 games a weekend just to kind of grit my teeth to make it up the ranks. And then got into college, got into high school and kept following it all the way up until kind of where I'm at now. And, there's certain years that things progress faster than others, but, it's just, 19 years of doing this and I'm thankful to kind of find myself where I'm at now.
I don't think people realize this, Steve. I want to say this real quick, and I got a question, but
Yeah.
I don't think people realize this, but I think the definition of throwing a referee into the ocean without a life preserver is the MUSL, like men's over 30. At 18 years old, just throw you in there and see how you do because that is the most brutal league to cover in the history of refereeing. At least I think it is.
I couldn't agree more. I think I got thrown into doing MUSL games down at Keyworth well before DCFC was ever there, and I would do 3 or 4 games between all the different nationalities, between the Ukrainians and the Iraqis and the Yemenis and I that's how you learn to sink or swim very quickly. And I think Nick and I are at a little bit of an age gap, but at the same time we've known each other and refed with each other for a very long time, and I think sometimes those are the fires you have to go through to get where you need to be, and they're not easy. And you come home on those Saturdays and Sundays and you look back at them now and you go, those were hell, and those were not fun, but they also give you the tools, and you learn sometimes what not to do next time, or you learn what does work. And I think one thing that I talk about with coaches all the time, especially in the last couple of years, is is trying to mend that relationship instead of this. And sometimes it means just being brutally honest with guys and saying, hey, I missed it, or hey, I didn't see that, or hey, I'll watch it next time, or tell me what you saw there. Because if you don't create those relationships, you won't get out of the tough times when you need to. And that's those MUSL days. I think that those are the toughest parts of the path to get where we are. I think Nick can agree, but the most rewarding at times.
Yeah.
We do
Nick,
have
if
some
you could tell,
questions
Nick,
from the audience.
if you could tell 13 or 14-year-old Nick Balser one piece of advice for refereeing and what you could use moving forward, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing is to not rush. Obviously, as a referee, and you guys both know this too, is you want to get to the top stage as quickly as possible. You want to get better games immediately. And the one thing that I don't think you can underestimate is just having a sense of being able to do a game at a specific level and feel 100% comfortable before moving on to the next one. Because I think we've all, there are certain times where as a referee, trial by fire, at some point that's got to happen because you've got to move up levels. But at the same time, doing 4, 5, 6 games at one level does not prepare you for the next level. It needs to be a more constant challenge beyond that. And so, kind of when I started getting into it, that was the thing. It was how can I get as quickly to the top as I possibly can and as fast as I possibly can? And if I were to go back, it'd be like, you know what? No, Nick, take your time, soak up the knowledge, use the biggest thing that I'll say this too is as referees, you gain pieces of knowledge from every different referee that you work with. So make sure that you actually soak that in, because there are tendencies that you like and you don't like. And that's kind of how what molds you into a referee. It's just like players. It's just like coaches, coaching styles, everything like that. Referees are the same way. And so just making sure that from a young age, you take pieces of information that work for you, because with refereeing too, not one size fits all. There's different personalities in the game that make a good referee. There's different management styles within a game that make a good referee. And so just using that as a really good base to get somebody into a position to be successful at a higher level is really, a fundamental key in my mind, and something I wish I would have known a little bit more kind of right after I got started 2, 3, 4 years in, because a lot of people, they kind of just start and it's like, okay, cool. It's a little hobby that I'm going to do on the weekends. And, it's nice because it's, nice little paycheck and you're good. But if it's something you want to take seriously, make sure you build a foundation and then continue to add layers as you go.
I think that's a great piece of advice. I think that even to this day, I always talk about trying to pick up, like you said, one thing from every game that I work. And it doesn't always have to be the biggest thing or biggest tool. And it may not be a tool that you use for 2 or 3 years, but sometimes it's something that you don't want to do, or sometimes it's things that you can do. Growing up, Nick, and evolving through your referee career, did you ever try to emulate or look up to a certain referee or a style of referee or certain referees that you looked up to, maybe even just local, to kind of help guide you? And I know that obviously you've had mentors, but did you ever look up to any specific type of referee or anyone specific?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because I was thinking about this question earlier, and one of the difficult things growing up, kind of when I got started into officiating back in the early 2000s, is MLS games weren't on TV. And so it was kind of tough to watch them. So and obviously we didn't have lower level divisions of soccer playing anywhere because streaming platforms weren't around. So for me, it was like anybody local that I was told that was good. And one of the people that I really enjoy still to this day is Jason White. Obviously he's in the MLS. He's been in the MLS now. I think this is his 8th year. He's getting close to a 200 game milestone. And he was also from West Michigan. And kind of as for a young guy like me, we didn't for a long time, the West Michigan area, we didn't have great soccer. We were trying to catch up with the east side of the state with the Vardars and the Wolves and a lot of those named teams, the Wazas, and for us, it was difficult to get good games, let alone try to see who a better one of the top referees was, because we just didn't have a lot of competitive games that people were working with. And Jason was the same thing. Jason would drive to the east side to do all those games. But I do remember getting the opportunity to work with him when I was kind of younger. And Just from minute one, the moment and the mentality that he brought, it would change you immediately like that. It was so different from everything that I had worked with, or all the referees that I had worked with up until that point. And as a young referee, and you guys know this, I just said it was about adding the layers in the foundation. When you meet somebody that is so confident, that just kind of has that smooth flow of everything, it sticks with you, and it's extremely, it stands out so much. And so for me, working with him for the first time, I think I was like 15 as an AR running a line for him, and I'm just like, this guy's got it. I mean, you know when somebody has it, and so it's like I want to try to emulate that. And so I'd like to think I've tried to follow, some of the things that he's done over his career. But he's somebody that stood out, and thankfully was local to me and easily able to reach out to him for advice. And even at this point now, I'm in Pro 2 as a national AR as well. Jason and I talk all the time. We talk about different things that we both see, and it's been super important to me because it helps me grow every time I've got a game or I got something to pick his brain about. And he'll ask my opinion on clips too. And I think the give and take when you can find somebody like that is enormous, regardless of where you are in the state or what level you're at either.
I don't think you could have said it much better. I had a feeling that being especially a West Sider, that that Jason definitely had an impact. And as much as we've known each other, I know how much Jason has meant to the Michigan referee committee and in general. We've got a couple questions coming in here from the comments. I got to get to one specifically. My girlfriend Chelsea is wondering, what are your thoughts on VAR, Nick? Do you think VAR is good for the game? Do you think the VAR? I mean, obviously, I think we all say if it's going to be here, there needs to be maybe some tweaks to it. But or maybe are you a person that thinks we should get rid of VAR and just go back to what the referee sees on the field?
I think for the level and the competitions that we see VAR used at, Steve, it's essential. I don't think I like to think of myself as a soccer purist, and I know it's weird saying that I like VAR as a soccer purist, but baseball fans will be the same way and everything like that. But ultimately, I understand that human error is a part of everyday life and the jobs, the professions that we all work in, and same thing with soccer. At the same time, though, I do agree with VAR being used because there are certain calls that do ultimately affect the outcome of the game, where as a soccer fan, you don't want to sit back and be like, yeah, this just doesn't feel right. And I appreciate VAR for that. And in doing the right thing. Obviously, like the process will be refined. It's been refined even just in the past few years where it's been implemented into the game. So I don't think it's a bad thing. The other thing too that I cannot stress enough, and we've all seen this, is the speed at which the game is played at, and the margin for error has gotten so razor thin that it's become more and more difficult to officiate the game because of, microscopic inches on whether it's in the penalty area or outside the penalty area, things like that. The speed of these players is faster than we've ever. Touches are better. The shots are faster. Those types of things. And so, as much as some people want to keep VAR out of it, like I said, the margin keeps getting thinner and thinner as we can continue to develop athletes that are just bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been. And so that leads to more and more difficult decisions. And you want to try to get those correct as much as possible.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that has a place in the game. I think the quicker we can get those checks done as well to eliminate the distraction and delay in the games is huge too. And I think the more we utilize the headsets and the communication between the VAR and the referee, I think will help the fans adjust and accept the VAR more into the game than it ever has been. Well, Nick, before we let you go, we must end with John and I always have a conversation about food and drink. So our last question is, if you could have one meal, what would it be? And also, what is your favorite candy?
Okay, so one meal. I'm a big sucker for seafood, and I absolutely love any type of grilled fish. Specifically, I love halibut. Halibut's probably my favorite right now. And then I'm always good for some roasted veggies, like roasted veggies in the oven. Brussels sprouts are my thing. I know some people absolutely despise them, but I actually just had some for dinner tonight. And then favorite candy, I might cause some enemies here. Peanut butter M&Ms are
Oh,
my absolute favorite.
Solid.
I love. And hey, Jonathan, Sour Patch Kids are much up there because I love a sour taste every now and then. But as soon as peanut butter M&Ms became a thing, oh my goodness, I couldn't keep my hands off them. They're so good.
Well, dude, that's no, that's awesome, man. Well, I was gonna say this. You mentioned Jason White, and Jason White. I've been following him for a long time. I will never forget Teddy Gregario. Teddy Gregario for
Oh,
me, I still to this day remember everything that he did on a pitch because everything he did on a pitch was brilliant as far as I was concerned. So, but he's. I know we had a chance to meet with him, Steve, here a few months back in the parking lot after the Oakland game. But that guy's he's a legend.
Jonathan, I don't think you will ever meet a referee that has given more people one-liners to use with coaches and players than Teddy. Like the guy has an OG encyclopedia of all the one-timers that you can come back with any response that you want from him.
Yep. Well, Nick, man, we appreciate you joining us here first time. Hopefully we'll have you on here again in the future. We wish you all the success and hopefully one day be able to watch you win an MLS game.
That'd be awesome. And I appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
So that's cool having a referee on like that. I mean, I've been following Nick for a while. We've never actually personally met, but I've been able to follow him on social media. That's a great thing about social media, right, Steve? Is that you're able to connect with people and see kind of how things go, and you're kind of watching his path. And obviously we didn't talk about his sister, but his sister, in her own right,
A whole different conversation for another day.
Conversation for another day. So
if we're gonna do that, we might as well get Bethany on. And
I know. but last week, Saturday, big thing happened. I was calling a game as the Michigan Stars were playing against the Michigan Jaguars. I actually had a chance to do some play-by-play of two games at once, which I haven't had a chance to do a lot of. But
it's quite impressive, I must say. Quite impressive.
I was watching the live stream of Inter Detroit versus Lansing Common, and I know the Lansing Common fans are going to be upset with this, but we don't care. Ryan Rowe, the head coach of the Midwest Premier League champions, will be joining us here in just a second. Talk about the team, what it means, to the program. We were going to have him on last week, but just because of scheduling and with what not being available on Monday. But we're going to welcome in Ryan Rowe, the head coach of the Midwest Premier League. As my mouse switched over to a whole nother device. I don't know why it does that sometimes. It's like new technology, Steve. My mouse literally went to my iPad as I was going to put him in. Ryan, man, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Well, hey, thanks for we can definitely hear you. Yes. First off, happy birthday to your 2-year-old son.
Yeah, Reese just turned 2.
Well, happy birthday. We know it's his birthday today, so we appreciate taking some time out of your evening to celebrate his birthday. But first off, congratulations on winning the Midwest Premier League. You won it in epic fashion. You were down 2-1 going, into 2-1, I think with 10 minutes to go, scored a goal and then scored a goal in stoppage time.
Yeah. We were actually down 1-0 at half as well. It's always a hill to climb when you go down before break. But I think that little breather to be able to talk them down, calm the nerves, collect themselves and replan, I think really helped us in the second half. And I couldn't be more proud of the group we brought that day, and ecstatic for the entire organization. So,
well, you think about it because you were down at halftime, and you come back and score a goal in the second half to notch it up 1 apiece, and then there's that free kick outside the 18, late in the second half. I mean, the announcers for Lansing Common, I'm sure the players, coaches, the stadium, it's a home field for them. They bury a very, very good free kick to go up 2-1. were you able to kind of collect your team at all to have a message and say, hey, we're still in this thing? I mean, because they were the response, even though Ethan Brandt, you can say he made a mistake, he's a very good goalkeeper. What was that message? What were you thinking in that moment when that goal goes in and how you respond?
I if you guys didn't know, I just recently completed my A license.
No.
And one of
Congratulations.
my thank you. My instructor, one of his biggest on my final assessment, asked me. It was a big question. He's like, game adjustments. What do you do when your team's up? What do you do when your team's down? And it's a difficult thing. I mean, it depends on the team you're playing. It depends on where you feel their weaknesses are, where you feel your strengths are, and those change from day to day, game to game. I didn't think from a playing style standpoint anything really needed to change. They allowed us to play quite a bit. It was more or less, all right, is there anything personnel wise that we could really just spark some more energy to see if we can't turn this thing around? Because I mean, they played a great style. Their philosophy in the game, I mean, every team plays a different way. And just like Josh Oakley was saying on the broadcast, is we don't care about having the ball. It's about those 1 or 2 minutes where we get it and what we do with it. So we brought on Luke Kearns and Gio, and sometimes you're wrong with the choices you make. Sometimes you're spot on, and those two happen to be the key players to overcome that difference and make a difference in the game. So,
Ryan, I know we had talked a couple times throughout the season, and you talked about this team and the depth that you had and the resiliency that you had with this squad of being through the ups and downs and having a chance to clinch and having a little of those disappointments. But I think that's what really builds character in your team, and obviously ultimately you guys came out as champions. Talk about that what this team all the way through is. You were the first to always not mention a single guy, and I really always talk about this as a team and as a unit, and talk about how nice it was to see this unit come together and finally become champions.
Yeah, I mean, I can go right to the stat board on that one. I mean, you can't win anything with a single individual. They might make differences in individual games, but if I were to look back at it, we had over 20 plus guys with assists. We had over 17 guys with a goal, 11 guys with 2 goals or more. It was a collective effort, whereas you see some of these teams, you got guys with 5, 6 goals, and those are obviously difference makers for those teams. I think from top to bottom, our pool of players really made the difference for our group. And that with that challenge of having such a pool that we have, it's about making players satisfied, happy, feel like they're needed, feel like they're an important piece. And that's part of the reason why we have our reserves in UPSL. And my motive and their motive was, hey, any game, any day, that roster can change. If you prove it, I am absolutely more than willing to give you the chance. Just much like the Inter Detroit ownership gave me a chance to explore this new level of coaching, I wanted to give that same opportunity for the players. So it's a collective effort to make a run like this, and like I said, it took 20 plus players in the Midwest Premier League, and 30 plus in the UPSL. I mean, we got everybody that was on our roster some type of minutes in every single moment throughout the season. So
No, that's really cool. And I think the thing that I was thinking about, because we called the game as you guys were facing off against Cedars FC the week prior, right? And you at that point you needed the 6 points, to take it out, to get it in clear position, and win the whole thing. You got some help, right, along the way. But you fell in that game, right? You fell, you lost. I think it was final score was 3-1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So to come off that match, you have your next match, obviously on Saturday against Lansing Common. And had you guys tied that game, you would have had the Michigan Stars game to be like the chance to win it again. So, you were in a position to control your destiny. But what was the message to the team, after that game? Because I could imagine going into that one, and then if that falling at that moment, did that hurt the team at all? Do you think did that? Yeah, because a lot of times you think about that could put some self doubt, right? There's going to be some doubt in a loss like that leading up to a game against like a Lansing Common.
Yeah. I at our training on Thursday, I got a little cheesy with the guys, and I pulled out a little Eminem quote. You got one opportunity. If you had the chance, that lovely song that he made. Boys laughed at me, but in reality, it was a little bit more truthful than what they realized. When you go on a streak like we did, players, coaches, anybody can get that in their head that, oh yeah, we're unstoppable. But every streak ends at some point. And what I told the guys is what I've been telling them every single week in, week out is you have to prove it. And we play one game at a time. We're going to slip up games. We had a chance to move to the finals in the Milk Cup tournament. Let one slip away. So you learn from losing as well. I brought that up to them, and I said, listen, it's going to be a hostile environment. I think the Lansing Common, what they have going on there is amazing for the game of soccer. And I told them, I was like, it's going to be very similar to what we played when we flew in Tigres and got over 600 fans to that game. I mean, it's a lot of people not rooting for you, and we need to be great. If there's any game to be great, it is that day, and great players show up in big moments. And that was my message. So,
no, it's a good one. Because you think about it, and that loss in some ways could have been the catalyst to help you guys see the finish line, right? And I think that a lot of times, because you'll watch it with a lot of teams who go on these long winning streaks, is that they forget they forget what it feels like to lose, and that sometimes that feeling of losing can be a catalyst or a spark to playing a higher level of game the next time you hit the field. And clearly, that's what you saw on last Saturday. And then ultimately winning again on. So it's a phenomenal end of the season. Midwest Premier League champions 2022 in Detroit, and Ryan, it's got to feel great. What's it feel like to hoist that trophy? Did you guys drink out of that trophy? I don't know if is that a thing? Were you pouring alcohol in that thing and drinking out of it?
I can tell you that I maybe got to hold it for a total of a minute and a half. I think the ownership, the boys were extremely ecstatic, and I'm okay with it. I'm always going to be that guy that act like you've been there before, but at the same time, it's just as exciting and a relief for me when I accepted the position. I told them, I was like, listen, you guys want something like this? Things have to change, and we changed a lot from last year to this year, and not a lot of people were comfortable with it. But I said, I can take us there, but you got to trust me. And to have it end full swing like this is it's a pretty awesome feeling. So I'm thankful for the ownership for trusting me along the way and getting the job done.
Well, Ryan, we appreciate you joining us here tonight. And congratulations once again on winning the Midwest Premier League here this season. Not an easy feat at all. We faced off against a number of really, really good teams. As you mentioned, getting 22 goals along the way, 17 assists, finishing with 21 points, 7 wins, and 3 losses. So, Ryan, thank you for joining us here tonight.
And a prediction from MSN that it was about to be 3-1 or 3-1.
I did get the prediction. I think I did it in favor of Lansing Common though.
You did.
I did. Well, I mean, we had watched Lansing Common a number of games in a row. Obviously, we had watched the Inter Detroit game against you guys against Cedars FC, and just based on that, not knowing the inner workings of the team,
Sure.
the prediction was based off of the number home field advantage. I mean, you think about that, you're going into a very, very difficult environment, and 800 fans all rooting for
Yeah.
against you, so to speak. So that was
It's definitely good side bet for sure. I coach with those guys. Brent Sorg and Josh Oakley coached within the youth system with me. Dan Diak within the Jags.
Yep.
We talked a couple times throughout the summer, and we had our own little things going on. But I get the bragging points for at least a year now. So
absolutely
that you do, and I owe you a beer for getting that one wrong. So
hopefully it's at Granite City.
Yes. Anytime.
This way he doesn't have to pay for it.
Easy Shrimp Tacos. Hey, a question we always ask our guests. We just did it with our last one. Your go-to food and your favorite candy.
Go-to food. I can't. I don't want to copy the referee side, but I'm a surf and turf guy, so I love it. And anytime going to get a nice steak and lobster. So, and anytime I try to eat healthy for a majority of the week, but once I just feel like I had a really rough one, I'm going to go out meat market and get some good food to cook. So,
they don't serve a surf and turf at Granite City, but
no, I know it's a bummer. I look for a bunch of places, they never do it. So, candy. I mean, obviously, my son's name is Reese. Part of that is because I'm a huge fan of Reese's Pieces. So,
oof.
That is my candy during Halloween.
I was very disappointed when they got rid of Reese's Pieces at Dairy Queen, because they used to always get a Reese's Pieces Blizzard. They don't have them. They don't have them anymore. No, that's a good one, man. That's good. Well, Ryan, we appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight. And we wish you all the success here in the future with Inter Detroit, and hopefully have you back on here when you win again.
Absolutely. I appreciate what you guys do for the sport. It's awesome to get the awareness out about the state of Michigan as a whole. So all leagues, it's awesome. So thank you guys.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan, and you have a great night.
You too.
Well, yeah. So there you go. Ryan Rowe, head coach of Inter Detroit, talking about that win against Lansing Common here, last Saturday, and win the Midwest Premier League. He called me out for the wrong prediction.
He was waiting to drop that one.
I know it was even made in the comments. He's like, but in all fairness, we had not gotten a prediction right all year anyway. So it was probably in his favor that I got that. If I would picked him, he probably would have lost. So because we have predicted wrong all year.
Not to mention that every team we've had on before they've played in a big game has seemed to go on and lose. So
yes,
it's probably best to just wait till the games are over, then we'll bring you on the show.
Yeah, well, another good show here tonight. I had some good guests on, good conversation about Midwest Premier League. What we didn't talk about quite yet is what's happening here over the next couple of weeks. So right on your screen here, I think I did it here earlier, but the FIFA World Cup tournament, e-tournament registration is now available. So you can go onto our Michigan Soccer Network website and click on there's right on the homepage. There's also a pop-up, those annoying pop-ups. I made one just for this. So you can click on either one of those and register. It's $35 to play. We're going to have 3 divisions of 32 players in each division. And you can register now. We are still finalizing locations. It's in November. So, but we're working on the details and all that. But you can start. Registration is now open, now available. This will be an in-person tournament that will be live streaming and covering throughout the day with audience and vendors. It's going to be, as my kids would say, lit. I don't know if I can.
It's a good way to put it.
Away with lit. It's going to be lit. So, but we'll have more information about the location. We're securing that right now. The goal is to be out near I would say more towards like 275 and M14 is where we'd like to kind of be at 696, 96 area to keep things somewhat close for anyone coming from the west side, the east side, keeping kind of more central. So we'll let you know about that here in the coming days. Next Monday night, we will be live out at tryouts, high school tryouts. So right now, starting here on Monday the 8th, we'll be at tryouts for 3 days in a row. We'll be covering high school tryouts, talking with teams and coaches at Troy High School next Monday night at 8 o'clock, live right here. And then on Tuesday, we'll be at noon. And then Wednesday at 7 p.m. in Okemos, we're at Sterling Heights Stevenson at noon on Tuesday. So we'll again talking with coaches and athletes, talking about the upcoming season. And then on next Friday, we'll have OAA Media Day, where all the OAA high schools will join us at Troy Athens High School. And we'll interview them and talk with coaches about the upcoming OAA season. Our goal is to expand that in the future to other areas, but we want to kind of get that a test run. But yeah, so that's kind of where our next week or so is going to be. A lot coming up here for the Michigan Soccer Network. Our high school season officially kicks off here on the 17th of August. Sterling Heights Stevenson taking on Birmingham Groves. So my old high school that I used to coach at for 5 years. So that should be interesting. So yeah, it's funny. Great segment with the referee. Took one question. It was from Steve's girlfriend. That's why I said nepotism. I even said it. I mean, I said nepotism. I'm not sure that even counts. Does that count? So you're getting. So not only am I getting this shit tonight, you're getting this shit. This is great. This is perfect. So yeah. So Steve, anything else you want to add here, man, before we get out of here?
No, man. I think it's an exciting time. As much as both seasons, some of our summer seasons were winding down and coming to a close. The high school season is kicking off here shortly in just a matter of a week. We've got the college season kicking off, and then the fall seasons for the fall leagues as well. So a lot on the plate, a lot from MSN to be covering. We're going to be trying to give you some coverage that we normally don't get out there too much. Like I said, we're going to do some tryout coverage. We're going to do some preseason coverage, some media day stuff. So really trying to give everybody a different look at all the different workings and inner workings of the game through different levels and through a little bit of a different lens. And John and I'll be here to bring it to you. So a lot of exciting things coming up.
That it is the Michigan Soccer Network High School show will come here not too far off in the distance here on Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. So it's going to be that's going to be all high school soccer. We're going to bring on all the high school players and coaches and talk with them on Sunday nights. We're working on some really cool things with a number of associations here locally to do some things that will be really exciting. So a lot of things in the works, and we're excited about that. So make sure you hit that subscribe button somewhere on here, there, wherever on your screen. Hit that bell, that way you're notified. Smash the like button on the video you're watching right now, because that's important. And share this with everybody you know who loves soccer, so they can come be part of what we're doing. Because we're trying to make this thing as big and as great as we possibly can. And I'm willing, and Steve's willing, to do just about anything to make that happen. So, but either way, we do appreciate you joining us here tonight. We'll see you next. Well, there's an opportunity for some, I'm not going to talk about it right now, but there's some opportunities, some exciting things that might happen here this weekend that I haven't talked to you about yet, Steve, that are currently in the works. So I'll let you know about that here later, maybe later this week. Some exciting stuff. But either way, I want to say thank you once again, Steve, for joining me here again, even though you had some technical difficulties.
We made it through. We made it through.
We did. And we're going to end it here with where are we going? Where are we going here in a few weeks?
We are going to Mackinac.
We're going to Mackinac. That's right. Where? Way up north. Still trying to figure out. I did find out that my T-Mobile will work on the island, so I'm excited about that. It's all red, so 5G everywhere. So we should have great coverage up there, according to T-Mobile. But anyways, from all of us here at the Michigan Soccer Network, Steve Besk, my name's Jonathan Turner. Have a great night, and we'll see you for some more soccer tomorrow.